Hey everybody, this is Sonny Washburn back with the 269th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We're starting off today with about 30 people, and we are just jam-packed. I got to tell you, I'm talking to you from Teaneck, New Jersey, across from Manhattan. Dave Saltman is with us. He's upriver in Riverdale, and the chaos in Manhattan is unreal because Donald Trump has decided to show up at a Knicks game. And this is the third game of the NBA playoffs for all you sports fans. All of you know what I'm talking about. And because Trump is deciding to turn up, they're calling off. In Manhattan, around New York, they hold these big outdoor watch parties where thousands of people who can't afford the $8,000 minimum ticket price for tonight's game, just go out and have a great time. It's a gorgeous day here in the New York area, but because Trump is showing up at the ball game, they're calling off all these watch parties. So it's really a national crisis, truly an amazing situation. And I'll keep you posted in case there's spillover here into Teaneck from angry Knicks fans who've been shut out by Trump. We have David Solomon with us, David up in Riverdale, and at 6:30 Eastern time, back in the second hour, we're going to dive deep into the CBS News situation. Dave has worked with Scott Pelley and has just reported to me that Scott Pelley, who was ousted from 60 Minutes by Barry Weiss, actually did reporting way back when on the environmental crisis in Ecuador. And we have had with us the great Steve Donziger, who was the lawyer attacked by Chevron in that situation. So, and David has got. There's nobody better to talk with about the crisis in the networks than Dave Solomon. So he'll be with us in about an hour and a half. In the meantime, we also have Howie Hawkins with us. Howie, we have an ongoing crisis, and along with MYLA and our other major nuclear expert, Howie, you're with the Green Party. You work closely with the Ukrainians. We now have count them, two atomic power plants in Ukraine in very, very serious situation. I mean, this is code red all the way. Howie, do you want to tell us what's happening with the two reactors, two nuclear plants in Ukraine?
Well, one was the Chernobyl complex. That's four reactors. They're shut down, but there's spent fuel storage, and the Russians hit one of the buildings that have the spent fuel. Now, it turns out there wasn't spent fuel in that particular building at the time, but it's part of the nuclear terrorism that Russia's, trying to intimidate the Ukrainians with. And then down at Zaporizhia, which is six reactors, the Russians occupy them. They were without outside power for 15 days, or I guess they were dependent on one line.
Yes.
And then there's been some drone activity around the plant, which the Russians say the Ukrainians are doing, the Ukrainians say the Russians are doing. I don't know why the Ukrainians would do it to their own country, but those are the two situations, on top of the fact that, over the last couple of months, the Russians have knocked out the substations that power the cooling systems for all 19 reactors in Ukraine. So that's the situation.
God, it's terrifying. I mean, Chernobyl threw atomic radiation all over the planet in 1986. Radiation from Chernobyl was detected north of San Francisco within 10 days, and it's still incredibly dangerous. And here we have the other reactor complex at Zaporizhia, six reactors, and they don't. This is the first time in human history where we've had two atomic reactor complexes in war zones, and and nobody's talking about it except you, Howie Hawkins. I mean, it's terrifying. And here in LA, we have Myla Reason, who's in Santa Monica, and we have a fire going on in Simi Valley where there was huge radioactive deposits made in the soil from the Santa Susana site. Myla, do you want to talk to us about that?
Sure. Well, the so-called Sandy Fire, which was north of Los Angeles, started on Monday morning, May 18th, and it burned for 9 full days. It
Oh, boy.
wasn't contained until May 27th, Wednesday at 9:59 p.m. It burned 2,183 acres of contaminated soil and brush primarily. And that area was contaminated because there was a partial meltdown at the Santa Susana Field Lab in 1959. And the radioactive material that migrated from that site and was found on that site is very energetic cesium-137, which is a beta emitter, strontium-90, which goes to the bones. It mimics calcium. Cesium-137, by the way, mimics potassium. So your body recognizes these radioactive nuclides as elements that are needed, and you have receptors in your body for calcium and for potassium. Also, in this contaminated area, they found plutonium-239, plutonium-238. Remember, plutonium is forever. It's got a half-life of
Okay.
25,000 years. Do you want me to just wrap it up here?
Well, let's yes, because
Yeah, okay.
the point is that you're in Santa Monica. I live in the valley. We're both downwind
That's
from
right.
this ongoing disaster.
Right, and let me just say, Harvey, just add to this, that when there's a fire, all of these elements are suspended, they're carried in the smoke, and they're once again available for inhalation and spreading the radioactivity even further.
And Howie brought this up last time we talked about Chernobyl. The same is true of the area around Chernobyl,
Right.
where radiation spread to the extent that the microbes that break down fallen timber aren't there. Howie, I mean, what are you hearing from people in Ukraine? Are people terrified by this?
Yeah, they're worried about that, and they're angry also that uh, Russia hit the Chernobyl Museum, which was celebrating its 25th commemoration, and it just, did some upgrades, and they destroyed half of it, along with some other museums in central Kyiv. So, the Ukrainians get it. The Russians are trying to intimidate them, and you know,
Well, they're
they're
s- they're
Hey,
scaring the hell out
Howie,
of the rest of us, that's for sure. I mean,
Sonny, we're welcomed by WALA Blegay.
yes, we'll get her 1 second here. Thank you, Howie. Thank you,
Okay.
MYLA. Both. We'll come back to this later if you stick around. I mean, Ukraine, we have 10 reactors under fire, and LA is being showered again with radiation. It's a nightmare. We'll come back to this. Mike, do you want to introduce our new guest with us? We have a very distinguished a governmental official from Prince Edward County and near you. And Michael, do you want to tell us about WALA Blegay, please?
Thanks, Sonny. It's Prince George's County, and I think
Sorry
maybe
about that.
that's okay. We should probably rename that for Harriet Tubman or something, because nobody knows who Prince George was. Um, but it's a wonderful county filled with great leaders, and among the best leaders in that county is my friend WALA Blegay. She is a county council member. She is a champion on the council. She has been leading the fight against these unregulated behemoth data centers. And she's also running for Congress. Now, this is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit Zoom, so we're not going to be endorsing anybody here. But I just want to say that we do endorse people running people-powered campaigns and not trying to buy a congressional seat with cryptocurrency or data center dollars like certain candidate in this Maryland 5th district is trying to do. So I don't want to cut too much into WALA's time because she's so busy. But everybody, please join me in welcoming WALA. Just a tremendous champion, great progressive on all our issues.
And well, one of the things we've been talking about with this call, these calls, we have over 40 people now, is the fight nationwide on data centers. And Steve Caruso, our engineer, has been fighting it in his neighborhood in Central Ohio. We have people all over the country dealing with this issue, and our hats off to you for dealing with it as a county official. Tell us what's happening with your fight on data centers and why you're doing it.
Thank you so much. I just want to tell you guys, I'm just leaving the National Press Club where we just had Bernie Sanders speaking. And I was just very much inspired because Bernie is fighting that fight on the national level. And we need the fight at the national level to give relief to our local elected officials. We do not have enough information about the causes of what can happen with data centers. At this point in Prince George's County, data centers are putting so much pressure on our grid. Our bills are over $1,000 a month.
Oh my
When
God.
we met with the PJM administrator, what they told us was straight and clear. Any more data centers on the grid, we will be looking at blackouts by 2027. That is scary. We don't know the impact that it would have on the water. And we put a qualified data center task force. What happened is that we got word that it was going to come to a mall area that has been not been active in our community. And right under our nose, they were going to fast track it, and it was at permitting. So I actually started a task force so we could look into data centers, but we put immediate resolution to stop all data centers, no data centers right now, because we did not know what this would bring to the community. And I'm talking, this location was right in people's backyards. This is not agricultural far away. We got pushback from the business community saying that we were anti-business. But what we told them is that at this point, PJM just sent a warning. More data centers on our grid means we're facing blackouts. The utility bills are going high. Water usage would increase. And we don't know the health and the environmental impacts of these data centers. What is the rush? So what we're asking our federal work, and that's why when I said I'm running on the federal level, we're going to stop them. We got to stop it and look into what data centers will bring, because at this point, all that's gaining are billionaires who are literally living like fat cats while we're paying the bills of our seniors that are seeing $1,100 bills per month. And even worse is that these data centers are asking us, and would not believe it, for tax cuts, tax exemptions. So it's like the whole point of even having a data center is to bring money to a community, and they are here now asking for tax cuts after they are walking away with billions and millions of dollars. We have got to stop this, guys. We are literally, they talked about this is beyond the Gilded Age, and that's what Bernie was saying today. We have it where a billionaire will come, bring something harmful in your community. They will sit comfortable while you're paying high bills, not even to offer to pay everyone's bills, since your data center, your hyperscale data center has caused a substantial increase in all of the costs of utilities. So, guys, we need to stop this. We need to make it clear. And let's just have legislators, because one of the pressures I face is that if our jurisdiction is having a tight budget cuts, and they're like, bring a data center so that you could get more money. So sometimes if you're opposing data centers, they kind of put you as a legislator as not being fiscally responsible. We're asking the community to stand up and make it easy for our local elected officials to say no. So that's why we're going to the federal level, and we need that moratorium needs to be put forth by Senator Sanders and AOC. We need to pass it right now. In addition, there's another bill that I do think people need to know of. Senator Van Hollen has the requiring all data centers to come off of the grid and build their own generation. And guys, that has to happen, or else we will be paying skyrocket bills for the rest of our lives, which is not fair to us when we're not the ones benefiting from any of this. So it's time to stop these data centers now. We stopped it in Prince George's County. Congratulations to Charles County, another county in Congressional 5 that was able to stop it. The residents put a stop to it in Charles County, and Calvert is in the fight. So we are fighting everywhere. Almost every jurisdiction in Congressional 5 is having a fight with data centers. We have got to stop it on the national level, because these data center folks, I mean, we even had one that said, if you want to get elected in this state, I can give you $1 million if you put forth my data center. And I mean, honestly, that's what's happening everywhere. We've got to stop it.
Wow,
Every
wow,
out of
wow. Good for
politics.
you. Good for you. I guess I'm someone, and the other people on the call with me. In 1973, the utility came into our town and said they were going to build a nuclear plant. And nobody gave us a chance in hell of stopping them, and we did. And in 1974, Richard Nixon said there'd be 1,000 nuclear reactors in the United States by the year 2000. In the year 2000, there were 104. So we're now at the same situation with data centers. I do want to point out, you probably know, WALA BLEGAY, that Deb Haaland, the indigenous woman who's just got the Democratic nomination for governor of New Mexico, has said that she will not allow any data centers in New Mexico unless they're solar powered. So you may want to take a look at what she's saying, and be in touch with Deb Haaland. She's an important connection. This is a national campaign. We're really honored to have you with us, and we're very proud of the work you're doing here. Let's go to Paul Newman in Santa Monica, who really knows his stuff. Paul, do you want to jump in with WALA BLEGAY?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Yes.
for it.
Okay. I just want to say that I was just having this discussion with Nancy Naparco, Dr. Naparco, earlier today, and we looked it up. And I heard the Chinese have data centers in the ocean with no environmental repercussions, no special chemicals needed to cool down the modules. Instead, they're in the ocean. They use to generate electricity, they use windmills, and they also have solar panels. So this whole thing, what in the world are they thinking? They don't have to have it that way. There are other alternatives, and they're not taking them. Why?
No, and even more so, they're actually threatening. Like, if we say, like, look at other options for powering the data centers, they'll be the first to say, oh, no solar panel can power a data center, no this clean energy can power a data center. So they will just throw all of your options down. Because the first issue for us is really our grid. Virginia has put us in a bad situation. They're the capital city of data centers, and almost every data center is on our grid, and we share the same 13 state grid as Virginia. So we're basically paying more money. We don't even have any data centers in Prince George's County, and there's only one that they're putting in Frederick County. But other than that, we don't have any. And honestly, we're paying bills because of Virginia. So it's even more.
And by the way, you mentioned PGM. That's the grid operator in your region. Wallace, you're temporarily blocked out, but I hope you can hear me. And Paul, great points. These data centers are really, really
I know, and
lethal.
I'm on my way to a meet and greet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
MYLA RESON in Santa Monica has a hand. Go ahead, MYLA.
Well, even if we remove the problem of energy in the grid, I think we also have to be aware of the fact that the private sector, our tech overlords, are also gobbling up our data, and we're losing our right of privacy. And I think that we really have to be concerned about privatizing our information. Doge already went in and scooped up all kinds of data about people, all kinds of personal information. And I'm particularly worried about the surveillance state. Are you?
Right.
Wanda? Are you
Yes.
concerned about that?
Yes, I am. And honestly, they are using our information to really to gain their profits when it comes to AI. So I know we were just with Bernie that talked about the sovereign fund. I think there's different things that people are putting out there, but I am concerned. I do think that we need to have more of a control of what can be used with AI because there are no rules right now. And honestly, that's why they're putting so much money into these campaigns because they don't want any limitations. And that's why we need to stop them and actually put the limitations in place so that our information is not everywhere and we're not being used because we're being monetized. If you look at what they're using us, the way we write, the way we think to make money. And we're not a part of that. And honestly, it could get to be dangerous. It's putting people out of jobs. And let's remember, we're not just talking about surveillance state. We're talking about a future where our youth might not even have options of jobs in the next 10 to 20 years. They're literally using these tools to put us all out of work. So we also need a control on that too.
Well, WALA Brigay is a county official. She's running for Congress, and it's right. What you're saying here is right on target. Let's get Steve Caruso, our engineer,
Yeah,
who's in the middle of a serious fight in in Central Ohio, and then Dorothy Reich. Steve, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So this will hold. Substack has an article about the UAE funding election interference and also data centers in league with a consortium of Microsoft, NVIDIA, Elon Musk, and this company called Aligned, ALIGNED. They tried to put a plant in here. Our local zoning commission turned it down just recently, but it's still not over apparently. Um, so all this Bloom Energy, money from the UAE, interfering with our elections. This is a documented whistleblower source at This Will Hold. I'll put the link back in the chat again. But all this is all tied together. And if they're going to make cryptocurrency with all these, is that their plan? I mean, they could have money just created by fiat, no labor involved because computers are doing it on our backs, like in the chat,
Okay.
Alison Green said, it's our data. They're making us pay for our data in the environment and everything else.
Well, also there are huge water issues, as I understand it, WALA, and I'm sure you've raised as well, Dorothy.
Yeah, the water issue is high usage, and someone talked about an ocean, which is probably a better option. But where they're talking about, they're not even near water. So what they're going to do is go to your local water system and have an agreement with them to use your water. That's what we've seen with the data centers that we've met with. Only one was even near a water, and even then we're talking about Chesapeake and all of that. So we don't even know. That's so close to us and our water use. So we really have to be, I mean, they really want no restrictions. And that's the biggest issue that we have. It's just almost like an entitlement of why should they be restricted in doing anything? And that's a concern for us.
Absolutely. Dorothy Reich in Topanga
Yeah,
Canyon. Dorothy?
so, AI attacked Meta AI went after Meta itself. But I read something even scarier that some guys created a worm to infiltrate whatever, and then the worm started duplicating itself. And they couldn't control it. And luckily they had it in a closed system, so it couldn't get out. But if this worm thing had not been in a controlled, in a box, it would have gotten out and it would have, I don't know what kind of damage or mischief it would have done, but they lost control of it.
We're not talking about a dune worm here. We're talking about an information worm. Howie Hawkins, if
Some
you're on,
AI thing, yeah.
yeah. Howie, with the Green Party, I'm sure you got a lot of people facing this issue as well. And then we'll go to Mike Hirsch.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a discussion on whether we need a ban on hyperscale data centers or a moratorium. What's the definition of hyperscale? There's no consensus in the industry. Part of it is, I mean, there's so many angles to this. There's the surveillance and information privacy angle. There's the environmental angle. There's the use of AI for military systems. So we're trying to get all that into the policy. And then not just powering data centers with renewable energy, but having a zero waste plan for electronic waste. And a lot of that involves these rare earth materials, which the mining for that has a big environmental impact. And then there's water. If they're going to use water, they might as well recycle it to keep cooling their systems instead of drawing down aquifers. So all that's under discussion.
Well, it's really mind-boggling. Mike Hersh, go ahead, and then Vinacali. And
Yeah, just
WALA BLEGAY, we're very glad for you to
Thank
stay with
you.
us. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Mike.
yeah, we had our friend Christian Nunez come in, and she's leading an effort to control these data centers. I want to underscore what Wallace said. They waved a whole bunch of money at her and said, "Come on over to the dark side and do our evil bidding." And she said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And so therefore they went out and they found somebody who's been a lobbyist for their concern and decided to put a lobbyist in Congress. It's an outrageous thing. You know,
A
we have
data
enough
center
trouble.
lobbyist to
A,
be.
a data center lobbyist. It just consider that. You know, the next thing they're going to do is try to put a Terminator robot in there. You know, it's getting to be like the stuff of a science fiction horror story. And what we have is a few heroes who will not take the easy way, will not take the easy money, will roll up their sleeves and fight for we the people. And it's just so important for us to just know. And a lot of voters don't understand how insidious these data centers and crypto bros and the Ellison family, they're buying up our media, they're buying up our Congress, they're buying up our water, they're buying up our grid. They're going to have us without water, without power, and then they attack those of us who say, "Hey, wait a minute, let's make sure this is okay." They're calling us bad for business or this, that, and the other. We have to stand up before it's too late. We have to make our stand. And I thank you so much, Walla, for
Well,
Thank you.
taking
and
on this
I,
fight. You didn't
I'm
have to do it. You didn't have to take on this fight, but you're doing it. And
Yeah.
thank you.
And
Thank
while
you.
we know you understand the interconnection of the nuclear power issue with data centers, it's deja vu all over again. And that,
Right.
they're using all these data centers to justify saying we need more electricity to justify building nuclear power plants. It's
Right.
absolutely insane. Alison Green, did you want to jump in here? Alison, go
And
ahead.
I'm gonna be jumping off soon.
All
And
right.
I definitely.
Well, listen, give our regards to Bernie. I've met him a couple times. Be careful. He can be grumpy, you know.
I know. I've heard. I've
He's a great
heard.
guy. Okay, we got
All right.
54 people. While you come back, and
All
good
right.
luck on your race. Allison Green, did you? Oh, and be sure to network. Put your contacts in the chat, please, or have Mike do it. Anybody who wants to get in touch with Walla.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my my email is there, and I mean my website is there, and I'm gonna put my email WALA Blegay, and I encourage you to reach out to me. And I'll put my number too.
Please do, Allison, and then Lynn Feinerman can have you on a radio show, maybe, if you get a
Yes,
second.
please.
Go ahead, Allison, and then Lynn.
Well, thank you so much, Walla, for what you're doing. And, I think that we have this kind of 1984 catch-22
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's really that they're stealing the data and then they're actually making us pay for it. But there's also, and Lynn pointed out, they're actually using a lot of our data to actually interfere and manipulate with the elections, which means that if we wanted to regulate all of this, we can't necessarily because the people in power don't want to give up the power. So I also encourage you that you work with people such as myself, Election Truth Alliance, to ensure that the data in your elections is fair.
Yeah, Allison, make sure you give her the contacts and contact her very
My,
quickly.
my information is in the chat.
Great.
And Lynn Feinerman has the radio show very quickly. Lynn, we know Walla has to leave. Lynn?
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, not directly about WALA. You go, WALA. Keep fighting.
Oh, thank you, Walla. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
But I wanted to say that I have a real disappointment in Bernie.
Okay.
We hosted Melissa Bird on this program numerous times. Melissa ran against Val Hoyle in Oregon for a congressional seat. And
Okay.
Bernie endorsed Val Hoyle, even though she is APAC funded and she voted for the Fix Our Forests Act, which is basically clear cutting in Oregon. And so I just wanted to say that's a huge disappointment to me.
Well, I hope you can have Walla on your show with you. Maybe you can talk about it with her there. That would be good. And I'm sure your disappointment in that. That's a bummer. Howie Hawkins, is Walla still with us? I think Walla has. Okay.
Yeah, I'm about
Yeah.
to jump off. I'm going to
Okay.
a meet and greet, so I just want to get some things. But I
Okay.
wanted to, anything else, let me know. You all got something else for me?
Howie Hawkins, go ahead real quick.
Well, I was just going to say, when we work on trying to regulate this data center thing, we should be fighting for moratoriums, that we have a moratorium until we have adequate regulations. A lot of
Right,
the
and that's
bans
right.
are for fixed times, which is
Yeah.
worthless if we don't have the regulations. New York State Legislature just passed a 1-year moratorium. I don't know if the governor is going to sign it, but they're not going to get the regulations together in 1 year. So
Okay.
the bill
Right.
that
Well, we
AOC
do
and
need
Bernie
that's why we need
Sanders,
the federal law to pass.
yeah,
We
the
just need
federal
that
law that
federal law to
Sanders
pass.
and AOC are pushing has an indefinite moratorium until we have an adequate regulatory regime.
Great. Walla, be sure to be in touch with Howie. He's very knowledgeable. Lynn, these are great people for you to be in touch with. Thank you so much. Good luck on your campaign, and we'll
Information's
have
in
you
the chat.
back. Thank you, Walla. And thank you for your work as a county commissioner, a county official, getting that moratorium. We appreciate it. All
Thank
right.
you.
Good luck. Thank you, Mike Hersh, for bringing Walla with us. We really appreciate that. Your recruitment skills are fabulous, and we appreciate it. We also want to share our condolences with the loss of your friend over the weekend. That's a big one. So sorry about that. Okay, that was pretty powerful and very intense. We're very good to have that issue raised. To share the network capabilities of our gathering. That's really important. Our second topic now, we're going to talk now about election protection, and then at the top of the hour, we're going to get into climate and nuclear war. Our Howie has and MYLA have raised the issue of ongoing radioactive pollution, which is just getting worse and worse. Nuclear war, it's almost becoming a side issue, but we're going to deal with it in the second hour. Then we're going to talk with Dave Saltman about what's happening with the media. Dorothy, did you want to say something again before we go to Allison? And
I have something that's not really connected to anything. I just want to throw this out. They're saying that Pete Hegseth was confused that the Allies were landed at Omaha Beach, and they were fighting the Germans, and the Germans were the enemy. But I don't think he's confused at all. I think this is what he thinks. He thinks the Germans were protecting the European continent, that the dirty Americans came and invaded his beach, and now the dirty, Middle Easterners are coming and they're invading Europe just like we did. And I think that that's what he thinks. I don't think he was confused at all.
well, the question is, how many drinks did he have before he made the comment?
I'm just
And what was
saying
it-
that
What was
he,
in when he drunk?
God knows what else he's on.
And will he be at the Knicks game tonight? I've never been a Knicks fan, but tonight I'll root for him. And listen,
He attacked the Europeans. He's making a D-Day speech, and he said that a new enemy is approaching the shores of Europe from Tunisia and Libya and wherever they're coming from, the Middle Eastern hordes that are attacking Europe and ruining the white nationalist.
I have to say, there seems to be no bottom to these people. You know, just when you thought you heard the worst thing you could imagine, they go even deeper. It's really mind-boggling. Thank you, Dorothy, for that. We appreciate it. Allison, now we're going to switch to election protection. And I do have a site available. We set it up in 2020, 24 rather. It's called usgrassroots.org. And if you're doing election protection, it's a dedicated site for election protection. There it is, the People's Hub for grassroots democracy organizing. And we're looking actually people who are doing election protection to make good use of this site. So if you're interested, contact me. Not exactly a site for sale. It's like a vacant mansion that people can move into and really make good use of. And we will partner with you on that. So think about that. Stephen has put up the link. Now,
Great.
Allison Green, you're working on election protection. We have Lily McGregor. Is she with us?
No, she's not here yet.
Okay, so we have a major, Trump has now called for a so-called investigation of the California election. We have had an astounding development in California, by the way. In the mayor's race, the front runner, California has a jungle primary,
Mhm.
which means regardless of party, the two people come in first and second, then run in the general election. And now in the governor's race, we have a three-way fight with Javier Becerra and then some right-wing guy that Trump likes. And then the third place is Tom Steyer. A lot of people assume that Steyer would get the second slot, but it looks like he may not. But in LA, in the mayor's race, a progressive woman of color has jumped ahead of a right winger, and we may have Mayor Bass against her progressive cohort. Actually, that remains to be seen. Now, Alice Green, you are working on election protection. We have, there's a laundry list of issues,
Yes.
and Dorothy earlier raised the idea that Trump may try. Well, he wants to ban mail-in voting altogether. What other issues are you working with in election protection? And everybody, please jump in. We want to have a master list of the key issues to protect the 26th election. I will point out, I can't resist, Steve Bannon, who's about as evil as they get,
Yes.
right out of Opus Dei, which is the extreme right-wing Catholic fascist organization, has earlier said that the key prize in American politics is control of the media. And as far as he's concerned, CBS is more important than the presidency in some ways. And we're going to talk about that in the next hour with Dave Saltman. But in the meantime, we need and we're going to do this every week now, we need to compose a master list of issues that need to be dealt with to safeguard any kind of democracy in the 26th election and a plan of action to make that happen. Allison Green, you are working in that ballpark. Tell us what's up in your work right now.
Okay, so I actually want to bring up that last week when I spoke with you guys, it was really heartening because you kind of said, what can we do now? Like, what is it possible to do anything at this moment? And that's where I want to come in and where I'm coming from. I actually was looking at Venezuela, and what Venezuela did was they actually got the parties together and they really kind of proved that their elections were being stolen. The problem is that they actually proved it within 48 hours of the election, but that was already too late. It was already gone. So we have a runway now, and we've been looking very closely at what can we do that we don't have to wait until election day to kind of get in front of this. And so I kind of am in election protection, but I want to be more aggressive than that. It's really all out war to save our election, and we have time to do it now. So what we actually found, and this is a perfect segue.
What is your group? You're saying we.
Sure.
What is the
I'm sorry,
nature
it's
of
up
your
to
group?
us. It's up
What's
to
that?
us is the campaign. It's up to
Okay.
us. I actually, our company is called Grassroots Speak LLC. So we are of the same mind. So Grassroots Speak is is the company. It's up to us as the campaign. We're working with people like Lily and ETA and with Smart Elections. And what we're actually trying to do is each of us, thank you. We've got the website there. You can see the address, and thank you, Stephen. We're actually building technology to that is helping us right now, right this minute, that we can use to get ahead of it. So in the last segment, you were talking about data, and I talked about the fact that their catch-22 is that they're stealing our data, they're charging us for the data, but they're also stealing our data to actually steal our votes. And what I've found through years of research is that for every person that they want to purge from the vote roll, they're going to create a new voter record, essentially. And so what we do is we call them ghost voters. So Alison Green, may show up to vote, but what is happening is there's Russian malware in the voter election system that for every 1 out of 10 votes, 1 out of 10 votes will be deleted. So you actually vote and you don't know if you're the 1 out of 10 that will be deleted. And then what they're doing is they've got ghost votes. So they replace Alison Green's vote with, let's say, a person in Florida named no first name, but their last name is Thunderbird. So Mr. Thunderbird will get the vote. That ballot will be cast. And if it doesn't agree with who I'm voting for, which I'm pretty sure I'm not in the same league as in the same lane as Thunderbird, what they'll do is they'll actually count the ballot for Thunderbird and not count mine. And it shows that I voted, but then they're actually counting another ballot. So all of this is data driven, and it's actually being used as kind of a seashell game in our elections. And what it's doing, actually, we've got on the screen Mr. ATM. I've found 7 people, or it may even be more. Might have even been 17, I have to recall, whose first name is literally ATM. It's in the voter records. There are people named ATM, Mr. ATM. There was one that I found that had the last name Rabbi. So it was like ATM Rabbi. Unless somebody kind of got clever with their marketing and tried to like legally change their name, I don't really believe these are real voters, but they're in our official voter rolls and they're active and ready to vote. So all of that sounds super scary, but we have an opportunity because what we're doing is we've created a database. As of yesterday, we had 109 million voter records. And what we're actually doing is we're tracking them as they purge us off the rolls. So some people, I mentioned the 1 out of 10 who are showing up and actually voting, but you get people who show up and are told that they can't vote because they're not on the voter rolls. So we're finding that they're illegally purging people, and we're gonna like have people re-register. So as much as they take them off the rolls, we're gonna keep putting them on. And then as they put in these ghost voters, we're finding them, and we call ourselves ghost catchers. We're gonna catch every ghost voter we can. And if there is somebody named ATM on the voter roll who's going to steal or dilute your vote, we're going to get them off the rolls. So the database and artificial intelligence does allow us to find these things rapidly. We could run reports and easily find all of these people they're deleting or adding.
Mind-boggling, really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Lynn Feinerman and then Steve Caruso. Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, Allison, great to hear of your work. I hope that you are associating with T. This will hold. They are doing some really interesting investigative work. What they've discovered is fake county vote banks. And they were supplied to Elon Musk through his America PAC, which never registered even one voter, but harvested an incredible number of voters' information and then took them and slotted them in to replace votes for Kamala that were early and mail-in votes. And that was done after tabulation. You guys should really work together. And they have a whole packet that they want to send to attorneys general all over the United States so that the attorneys general can begin to institute the kinds of investigations that you're doing that are not quote unquote official.
Well, Lynn, I hope you will encourage T to speak with me because others have put us in touch, but she does not seem inclined to work with us. I do feel like what she's found is similar, but yeah, I don't know why. So maybe you'll put in a good word because I'm working with ETA, I'm working with Smart Elections. I think that this pie is so massive that we need as many people working together because this is about all of us. It's up to all of us.
Yeah, I agree. And I certainly will be in touch with her.
Great.
All right, good. Glad to connect you. Steve Caruso.
Yeah, it's all of the above answers. You know, everybody's doing their thing and they're focused, and that's good. And we're pulling all the guck out of the sewer. You know, many hands make for small work, or as the saying goes, or whatever it is. It's not AI though, Allison. It's your brain that's doing the work. There
It
was a
is. I get a little bit of help from AI, but yeah, I mean,
AI
yeah.
gets too much credit. There's a guy that found like 1 million orbiting pieces of rock in the solar system on his laptop with a little mentoring. And, you know, there was no big massive, this AI thing is just getting too much credit. Thanks.
No,
Really?
I agree.
I agree.
And Steve, I mean, what we did yesterday, I think, was so good as well. I mean, he passed on to me some of the Ohio voter rolls. I was able to go and grab Ashland County, I believe I started with, and I literally sorted it. Now, because we've actually been doing this for a bit, we're seeing patterns. So, for example, I like I like to say, and by the way, I laugh so that I don't cry. So this is a very serious subject, but I have to kind of lighten things. And so I'm not making jest or fun, but it's as though our voter rolls are actually being sponsored by Sesame Street and the letter A or B or C, because I've found a pattern in the number, in the voter records, where when I took Ashland County, for example, I was able to sort by first name. And immediately what I saw was somebody whose first name was A and another person whose first name was A. I then scrolled down to B. Lo and behold, there's somebody named B and another person named B, and then C, and then D, and then E. Now, the chances and likelihood that this one county in Ohio has somebody with the first name A and another person with A and B and C and D and E and F is very unlikely. It's much more that those are computer generated records that are waiting in the wings to cast very real ballots, and they
And
are
this
on
is
our voter rolls.
this is the opposite of what the right wing has been doing, going in and denying legitimate voters their count, whereas these are actually fake voters. You got people registered to addresses that don't exist,
Don't
or
exist.
UPS, or you know, all kinds of stuff they're putting in there, and then they use those votes to replace other people's votes that were illegitimately denied. two negatives, but whatever. Yes.
Right. So there actually is, it's kind of the modern version of stuffing the ballot boxes. They're stuffing the ballot boxes with ghost voters. And then when the real people come to put their ballot in, they're deleting them. So they're suppressing the vote, not only through gerrymandering, not only through all of the things that we see in the public, but behind the scenes, they're suppressing, they're using the technology to suppress the votes. So what we're actually getting is not the will of the people in our elections. We're getting the will of a conspiracy. And I use the word conspiracy not lightly. It's actually a word that Jack Smith used. Special prosecutor Jack Smith prosecuted Donald Trump for a conspiracy to violate the voting rights of the people. So I can probably read to you as well, but what Jack Smith does is, that's part of how I found this. I've got from his testimony, I hope you don't mind, I'm reading from the transcript right now, or I guess I can probably share it too.
Yeah, if
so
you have
that
a
you can
document, you
see.
can throw it right in the chat. It'll populate.
Well,
The other thing,
go ahead, Steve.
Harvey.
What we need now to move forward, and we have what, 6 months until the election, Les? It's
Yep.
May. It's June now. So we have basically 5 months at the most to deal with this. The question is, what is the list of issues that we're going to have to deal with to protect this election? And at the top is money. Where does money fit in? I mean, we say millions of dollars. It can't all be going to TV advertising.
There you go.
No.
She was going to work with Andrea Miller. I don't know if you succeeded, and I'm bringing up somebody that's not here, but to get on the phone banks and let people know that their vote has been
Well,
discarded,
let's get to the bottom of it.
or their
When
registration.
I see Steve Bannon saying that basically the Republicans have got to stop wasting their money on TV advertising and go to door, which is what we've been talking about for 6 years, I'm terrified. Because if the Republicans take the billions that they use to put Trump in the White House and use them for door-to-door campaigning, that's a serious problem.
Sonny, I'm
We
sorry
also
to
see here,
interrupt.
let me finish this list
Yeah.
real quick. We also see Trump attacking vote by mail. Now, historically, more Republicans have voted by mail than Democrats because it's an older demographic. But he must have a reason for trying to wipe out vote by mail.
Oh yeah.
It must be that when people show up in person to vote, they are able to be intimidated, as we saw in Greg Palast's movie Vigilantes Inc. And by the way, Greg Palast will be with us for a full session next week, and
Great.
so we'll have him back with us. So then intimidation becomes part of it. And the data, as you mentioned, there are many different ways that they can play with the data, to play with the voter rolls in both directions. A, to eliminate people, and B, to produce ghost voters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the vote count.
Yes.
We have been advocating really since 2004 for hand-marked, hand-counted, digitally scanned paper ballots. And ironically, we seem to have some right-wing people pushing for paper ballots, but with an opposite agenda. What am I missing now? Okay, money, mail, intimidation, the vote count, the manipulation of data. What else is there? Well, of course, on the plus side, the promotion of a turnout, which is what Andrea Miller works on, which is very effective. What else is in this laundry list that we need to develop?
We need to find who is going to hold people accountable to do these audits. It's all well and good asking for the audits, but who's going to do them? And one of the things you mentioned, money. I was actually on the phone, we're trying to put together lawyers to actually bring in lawsuits before the election to actually force the fact that these voter rolls have fraudulent people. We want to go to the judge and say, Judge, we don't think, not even we don't think, Judge, somebody who doesn't have a first name, who has no middle name, and has the last name Thunderbird, THUNDERBYRD, apparently the Florida Division of Elections is putting them on the official voter rolls and is willing to count their vote, while I can't actually be assured that I don't have a fancy last name like Thunderbird, but I'm not going to get counted necessarily. If they say that they counted my vote, how do I trust that? So we're looking at putting in legal actions so that we might even be able to, for example, sue the state of Florida that there has to be court oversight to enforce these audits of the voter rolls before they're allowed to certify federal elections, because there are 28 congressional seats in Florida that if they're just fraudulently allowing people who are ghost voters to vote while deleting the real people, then that's 28 House seats that the rest of the country is going to have to suffer.
Well, we need now a master plan,
Yes.
clearly. And it has to be, the other thing I left off this list was gerrymandering, which, is pretty well known.
Yes.
At this point, there's a lot of speculation, for good reason, that the Republican gerrymandering, at least in Texas and maybe elsewhere, which has been formulated on an assumption that Hispanics are going to vote Republican, could very well backfire. So gerrymandering is a massive mess as well. So I've got basically 3, 6, 8 points here, primary points to deal with, and we're going to spend the rest of the next 6 months unraveling those points. MYLA RESON, go ahead. We're almost out of time on this, but we're going to do this every week from now on. So go
I,
ahead.
thank you. I just have a quick question, Allison. I notice on your on your screen that you are on Substack, and I found that one of the great promoters of other Substack people is Wajahat Ali.
Oh, yes.
And have you been on with Waj yet?
Only in spirit, because Nathan Taylor was on with
Oh,
him last week and talked about my work.
oh, okay.
So I've been mentioned, and I really would like to get in touch with him because he seemed to be fascinated by what we had found, and I'd love to be on it. If anybody can help me with that, that would be great.
Well, we're going to continue to network here.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to build around these. I think we need to build a tablet of the principal issues to be dealt with going forward into the election. We can maybe make use of that usgrassroots.org website.
Yep.
And we can't be just wringing our hands here.
No, we have work that we can be doing.
We
can
know what's
actually-
coming.
yeah.
Everybody knows what's coming. There's
And-
no mystery here. I mean, I watched Harry Inton, who loves to get on. He's with one of the networks, maybe CNN. I don't know. I see him on YouTube, and every night he's putting forward. He's allegedly nonpartisan, and he's showing all these polls that show the Republicans in the toilet. But none of it matters if there's not a fair election.
Right. And Trump has said, you don't need to vote for me. I don't need your votes. There's a reason that he doesn't need their votes. And so I will borrow Steve Bannon for a second, and I will talk about the door knocking. Imagine if we, Sonny, can be going and knocking on doors that are for registered voters, but when we go to the front door, we can't find it because it doesn't exist. We've got a film crew there and saying, okay, I'm on Community Boulevard. I see that it says that there's a voter at 11282, but where's the house? Let's get those videos going. And I can tell you, I walk Community Boulevard all the time. Not only are there no houses there, there's like over 100 voters who are registered on Community Boulevard. I've looked up on the property records for the county. They say no records exist because the house is not there. I go to Zillow and say, did I miss it? Zillow has no record of a house, but there's a voter registered to vote there. Let's take that and take a film crew. I will take you to houses. That's what I did with Nathan Taylor of Election Truth Alliance. The first door that I took him to, we knocked on the door, and there was a couple there from Palm Beach. And I said, we just noticed that you just moved in. Welcome. They had new construction. But what I didn't tell them is their house was not completed before the election. So when you actually have a house under construction, I wasn't sure how you could actually vote from that house. So I said, welcome to the neighborhood. Did you vote in the 2024 election? Absolutely. We voted. We voted in Palm Beach. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting because I can see here that your husband also voted in St. Lucie County. And the wife said, no, that's impossible. I was with him. We voted in Palm Beach. I went back. The state records show the husband voted in Palm Beach and in St. Lucie, but he had no idea. Somebody had taken his identity and voted for him in St. Lucie County.
Wow. Well, this sounds like a job for Elon Musk. So we're gonna need to, next week we'll have Greg Palast on. You can talk to him about this.
Absolutely.
And this is serious stuff. I mean,
is.
basically, are you saying that under the First Amendment that ghosts do not have a right to vote?
I am going to go out there and say that ghosts, whether they're in invisible houses, whether they're haunting real houses, they do not have the constitutional right or the legal right. They're not they're not allowed through the Help America Vote Act.
Okay.
Nope.
This is
they can't
this
vote.
is obviously a life and death discussion here. We're going to continue it next week.
Great.
I'll see if I can get Ray Lutz to come back. This is serious stuff, and obviously life and death. I will
Thank you.
have by then a list of the life and death issues in the upcoming election, and we're going to move on. Allison, you're a great guest. Thank you for 2 straight weeks, and we'll keep on the case here.
Thank you
Steve
very much
Caruso,
for.
thank you for being with us. Put your contacts in the chat. Steve Caruso, did you want to say anything before we move on to?
Yeah, I was just going to insert that they went to a boat dock and they asked the owner, it says, is anybody living here? And she says, I hope not, and they're using
Exactly.
boats as an address, okay.
Well,
thanks.
you're in Florida, so just be careful.
Oh,
And
trust me, I am.
we'll have you back next week. Don't want to read that you were eaten by an alligator who tried to vote.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you, everybody. 62 people with us. We're going to move to climate now. We have 2 great guests, and nuclear war. So Jeremy Love is with us from Back to the Brink. We're going to start with nuclear war, and then Rebecca Harris. We're going to segue with you into climate issues as well. Jeremy Love, we will introduce you. I will give you a heads up. Earlier in the gathering, we were told by Howie Hawkins of the Green Party, who is deeply in touch with people in Ukraine, that we have 2 nuclear power reactor centers in Ukraine that are under attack. For God's sakes, Chernobyl and Zaporizhia, 4 reactors at Chernobyl, 6 at Zaporizhia, a radioactive fire in LA, and you're joined by your cat, who obviously is anti-nuclear. Tell us about what you're doing with nuclear war, and then we'll go to Rebecca Harris to talk about climate.
Sure. Yeah. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Jeremy Love. I'm the national field organizer for Back from the Brink. I call Manchester, New Hampshire home. Sonny and I talked a little bit about the Clamshell Alliance. I have some friends, like legacy folks that helped with that campaign back in the 70s, and I call some of them mentors. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm going to give like a 15-minute talk on sort of Back from the Brink, as opposed to Back to the Brink, because we actually want to move away from it, not to it. And also, I really like the idea, Sonny, that you were mentioning life and death issues, because frankly, I think this is one too that kind of goes under the radar, so to speak. So it's part of the work that we do. Um, so I kind of prepared some stuff I'm going to read. So apologies to me if you're not into folks reading at you, but it'll be a better presentation because I do. Trust me. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to chance with you guys about Back from the Brink and the work that we're doing to address the threat of nuclear weapons and how we're trying to build a stronger, broader, and more people-powered movement for nuclear abolition. I know nuclear weapons can feel like a big and overwhelming and sometimes far away issue. For a lot of people, it feels either too technical, too political, or too terrifying to know where to begin. And frankly, that's understandable. We're talking about weapons that can destroy cities, poison the environment, destabilize the climate, and threaten life on a scale that's almost impossible to fully comprehend. Part of our work is helping people face that reality without becoming too paralyzed by it and transmuting that fear and anxiety into meaningful action. But one of the core beliefs behind Back from the Brink is that the issue is not too big for ordinary people to engage with. In fact, ordinary people working together through their communities, faith groups, professional associations, local governments, campuses, civic networks is exactly what is needed. So what exactly is Back from the Brink? So Back from the Brink is a national grassroots campaign working to abolish nuclear weapons and prevent nuclear war. At the center of our campaign is a simple but powerful call. We're asking that the United States lead a global effort to eliminate nuclear weapons and to adopt common sense policies that reduce the risk of nuclear war. Our campaigns organize around 5 policy planks, renouncing the option of first use of nuclear weapons, ending the sole unchecked authority of any president to launch a nuclear attack, taking the entire nuclear weapons arsenal off of what's called hair trigger alert, canceling the plan to replace the entire U.S. arsenal with enhanced and modernized weapons. And then lastly, and perhaps the most important sort of point, is actively pursuing a verifiable agreement among the nuclear armed states to eliminate their nuclear arsenals. So this isn't a radical idea. They're practical common sense steps that would make us all safer. At its heart, Back from the Brink is about helping people understand that nuclear weapons are not an abstract issue from the Cold War. They're a current and urgent threat. We also want to help people become conversant in the issue, not necessarily experts, but informed and confident enough to talk about the threat, explain the common sense policy solutions, and invite others into the conversation. And just as importantly, we want people to understand that there are meaningful ways to take action. So the nuclear threat didn't just go away at the end of the Cold War, as I'm sure we all are aware. In many ways, the danger has grown. We're living in a time of deep global tension, war, political instability, and rising authoritarianism. Nuclear armed countries are modernizing their arsenals. Arms control agreements have weakened or disappeared entirely. And new technologies, including cyber capabilities and artificial intelligence, create additional risks of miscalculation, accident, or escalation. At the same time, the public conversation about nuclear weapons just isn't where it needs to be. Most people are not thinking about this every day. Many elected officials are not being asked about it. And too often, nuclear weapons policy is treated as something that belongs to military planners, national security experts, and people in Washington, D.C. Back from the Brink's trying to change that by helping more people become informed, conversant, and willing to speak out about the issue in their own communities. We believe nuclear weapons should not be decided behind closed doors without meaningful public engagement. These weapons threaten us all, so we all deserve a voice in shaping the policies that govern them. Our theory of change is pretty straightforward. If we want national change, we need to build visible, organized, sustained pressure from the ground up. That means not only do we focus on Congress through congressional advocacy, although that is very important, we also work to build in communities across the country. We organize locally so that people, organizations, and elected officials are willing to say clearly and publicly that nuclear weapons are unacceptable and we need a different path. One way to do that is by passing resolutions in cities, towns, and states. These resolutions call on the federal government to adopt a Back from Brink policy and policy agenda and pursue nuclear abolition. I'm actually going to stop for just a second to share on our website, and I'll put it in the chat here.
Okay, just remember we're also on radio, so you can't be totally reliant on your visual here.
That's fair. That's fair. I appreciate that. That said, I do want to share this enormous list of resolution cities with you all since I just mentioned it.
Well, you can read them off as you go.
Oh, I can't read them off because there's too many of them.
All right, well, I'm glad. That's good to hear.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem we want to have. So local resolutions matter because they help bring the issue out of the shadows. They create public education opportunities, and they get officials on the record. They generate media attention. They give organizers a concrete campaign to work on, and they send a message upwards to members of Congress that their constituents care about this issue. And the theory is not that one city resolution by itself changes federal nuclear policy. The theory is that hundreds of communities, organizations, faith leaders, health professionals, students, veterans, local officials, and just ordinary folks speaking together can create the political conditions needed for national change. So we're really trying to build a drumbeat that can't be ignored. One community, one organization, and one elected official at a time. Each action adds to this rhythm and momentum that we're trying to create for sustained pressure for national change. We use several different forms of advocacy because people enter this work in different ways and have different skills and levels of engagement. First are the local resolutions. They're one of our core strategies in helping communities pass back from the brink. It might mean working with a city councilor or a mayor or maybe a county commissioner. It involves education, relationship building, public testimony, coalition support, and often a lot of patient organizing. These resolutions are powerful because they connect nuclear weapons policy to local democracy, and they really drive home the fact that nuclear weapons is not just a federal issue, it's a community issue. One of the points I like to bring up when people say that they don't think that nuclear weapons are a local issue, I ask them if they think that if a nuclear bomb landed near them, whether FEMA would come to rescue them. And if FEMA does not come to rescue them, then where does the onus fall for the emergency response? It's your local government. So when FEMA is not able to come to your rescue, it's your local government that's going to be providing those services. So it most definitely is a local issue. The second sort of component of that is congressional advocacy. So we advocate directly with members of Congress. In fact, we have 2 back from the brink resolutions in the Senate and the House right now. Senate Resolution 323 and House Resolution 317 are both back from the brink bills. We have 57 co-sponsors on the House resolution, and we have 8 co-sponsors on the Senate resolution. So really the goal with that work is to demonstrate to Congress that there's real public support for nuclear risk reduction and threat reduction, and that people across the country really desire leadership on this. The third sort of component is organizational endorsements. So that's another important part of the campaign, is building broad-based organizational support. I could share in the chat the big list of sort of organizational supporters. We have a lot of the big ones. 350 is an organization.
Please do. Put it in the chat. Go ahead.
Will do. So we have a lot, like I was saying, a lot of organizational support from really big folks. I'm actually not going to give you an exhaustive list, but, you know, for instance, AFSC is one of our organizational partners, Sierra Club, the NRDC, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Union of Concerned Scientists. I mean, it's really just quite the substantive list of organizational partners that we have on board with us. And that's really part of the work that we're doing too, is, you know, to essentially bring peace groups, faith communities, health organizations, student groups, local civic organizations to endorse the campaign, because that helps show that this isn't just a narrow or isolated concern. Nuclear weapons connect to sort of all of these things. One of the people that I work with had this idea for a bumper sticker that said nuclear weapons are a threat to, and then you can literally fill in the blank with anything. Nuclear weapons are a threat to youth baseball in your neighborhood or your town. Nuclear weapons are a threat to your local library. Nuclear weapons are a threat to the retirement home down at the end of the street. Nuclear weapons are a threat to everything. So the fourth component of this work is public education. Many people know nuclear weapons are dangerous, but they may not know the current risk, the policy choices that keep us in danger, or the concrete steps that could reduce the threat. Public education can look like webinars, film screenings, community forums, op-eds, letters to the editor. a big part of the work is helping people, really just become more conversant in the topic and giving them the confidence to talk about it with others. And in a way, we'll be able to transmute that fear or confusion into something meaningful at the end. And finally, and part of my reason for being on this call is just the grassroots organizing component of this. At the center of it is essentially about identifying people who care, helping them find sort of a meaningful role in the campaign, connecting with others who are also doing the same work, and supporting them as they take action. Not everyone needs to be a full-time activist. There's space kind of for everybody in this. You can write letters, you can make calls to your congressperson, you could host a conversation or a book night or a film viewing. I mean, there are really just so many ways for people to meaningfully engage with this. So the point is really to create as many different on-ramps to the campaign and anti-nuclear weapons work as possible so that folks can see them as being part of this work. So
Okay, sounds great.
the last thing I'll close with is, and this is probably the most important part of the work to me, is our hub network that we've been building. So we've got 26 state-based hubs or chapters of Back from the Brink across the United States, and we're looking to develop more. It was actually part of the reason why I'm on this call was an organizing call I had with some folks from Ohio about starting a hub in Ohio. And now Ira Helfand will be in Columbus and Cleveland, I think the second week of July for some events. But to give you some background on that, so hubs are local or regional organizing groups that carry the campaign in their communities. They're the local drumbeat of Back from the Brink, in my opinion, and they can serve as a rallying flag for people who want to learn more about nuclear weapons. Some hubs are connected to existing organizations like Physicians for Social Responsibility. They actually proved to be great anchor organizations for some of our hubs. But then a couple of our hubs are also sort of anchored by peace action chapters, which is really awesome. And I come from a peace action background. I used to serve on the national board of peace action for a couple of years and am closely connected to New Hampshire peace action in my home. So the national campaign, can provide resources for the hubs, messaging, strategy, coaching, and coordination. But really, what's important not to lose sight of is that the local people know their own communities. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all situation. The dynamics in each community are different. And we, really want to develop meaningful relationships with folks in their local communities so that we can do the work that sort of hits the hardest in their geographic location and is most meaningful to the folks there. So to close, I'll just say this, that I hope that you'll join us in trying to build this durable movement. We're trying to create a culture where opposing nuclear weapons is normal, visible, and expected. We're trying to help more people see that nuclear abolition is not just some naive idea. What's naive is believing that we can keep thousands of nuclear weapons forever through endless wars and crisis and human error and assume that they'll never be used. We're trying to build enough public pressure and moral clarity and political will to move the U.S. towards a safer and more just nuclear weapons policy. So yeah, I think I'll close there. What
I'd like to do is to persuade you to link this magnificent network to the movement to get the planet to be 100% renewable powered. Because we're now in a crisis situation where the atomic reactors that have been built, there are over 400 worldwide, are becoming weapons of mass nuclear destruction. You've got 2 nuclear sites involving 10 reactors in Ukraine that are now in a war zone. And you've got 2 reactors in California that could wipe out all of Southern California if they were hit by a single drone. Drone warfare has changed the entire dynamic of calculation on what's called nuclear war. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure MYLA agrees and many others, there's no distinction between the presence of nuclear weapons and the presence of nuclear power plants. Nuclear power plants have become de facto atomic weapons, and there's no way around it. And especially because of the advent now of drones. and the incredible vulnerability of atomic reactors. You do not, I'm not going to go into the detail. It takes one drone to turn a nuclear power plant into a nuclear weapon. And if you will make that clear, and I'm sure Ira gets it, I mean, he was with us a few years ago. If you will make that clear in your campaigning, you can add an entirely new dimension to your campaigning against nuclear extinction, which is really what we're talking about here. And we have two great people to join us who can put the climate dimension into it, but that's the atomic reactor dimension. MYLA RESON, go ahead.
Well, darn it, Sonny, you stole my thunder.
How about your lightning?
Exactly what I was going to say. Jeremy, I think that it is so important to acknowledge the fact that these nuclear power plants are de facto nuclear weapons. And not only that, I worked for years as a community organizer in New Mexico, where we have Los Alamos National Labs and Sandia Labs. And it's these laboratories and the places where these nuclear weapons are fabricated are contaminating the surrounding communities with radioactive contamination. And in the one instance, if there were a nuclear bomb were to go off, then people would be vaporized instantly. But what's happening throughout our country at nuclear weapons manufacturing facilities and at nuclear power plants, people are being poisoned slowly, but they're still being killed. People outside of where Rocky Flats was, where up north at Lawrence Livermore Lab, all over the country, people are being poisoned by radioactive material. It's like the enemy within. While we're arming ourselves with nuclear weapons to prevent other nations from bombing us, we're actually killing our own people by creating these horrible areas of radioactive contamination.
Right. And MYLA's got makes the point, which is incredibly important. The campaigns against nuclear weapons are absolutely essential, but they need to be linked to the production of nuclear weapons. Vina Colley comes with us. At Piketon, at Portsmouth in Ohio, in Southern Ohio, at Rocky Flats, at Mallinckrodt in St. Louis. I mean, we have this whole history of the production of nuclear weapons, which has not stopped. And if you link the abolition of nuclear weapons to the abolition of the ecological infrastructure that produces them, you add a whole other dimension. And then there's climate. So to be, where we've as polite and as orderly as possible, I'd like you to stay with us. We have Rebecca Harris and Maria with us to talk about the nuclear climate warming, global warming, which is also fed into by the production of nuclear weapons. The nuclear weapons production cycle is devastating to the planet's climate. And to link your magnificent organization, which has such a great history, into the ecological disaster that accompanies the production of nuclear weapons is really critically important. So, Rebecca Harris, Jeremy, if you can stay with us, please. And we're then going to be joined by Dave Saltman, who's been with us patiently, who's going to talk to us about the media crisis that feeds all this. But Maria and Rebecca, can you talk to us about climate survival and maybe reference Jeremy's work on nuclear weapons?
I do have to leave at about 6:45 my time.
Well, all right, you got a half hour. Here we go. Rebecca Harris and Maria, can you give us now? Remember, you guys have a visual presentation, but remember, we're also on the radio. So please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Sunny. My name's Rebecca Harris, and I'm here with Maria Jahangiri. Together, we co-lead the climate mobilization, and we're here today to share a little bit with you about our work for climate survival. And I really love what Jeremy said about transforming fear and anxiety into concrete action and helping people who care find a meaningful role. If you ask me, that's the task of our times. We know that we are living through weaponized desperation, cruelty, and terror. And many of us probably find ourselves on tonight's call because of the lack we experience around us of folks we know lacking the things we need to survive, but also the way that the very most basic things we need to survive, food, healthcare, are being weaponized by the Trump administration to attack our communities and attack our movements. We are in an era where it is a struggle for survival. And we believe that as disasters mount and as official systems fail, one of the things we need most is neighbors who are organized to work together for survival and to build the climate solutions we need and take power into our own hands in the absence of the federal government taking action. So what we do is we support people to build climate survival initiatives. These are programs that expand access to the things that we need to live: food, water, energy, land, care, as well as disaster resilience initiatives. These projects are a front door that invites people in to begin building solutions for survival, for resilience, and for self-determination in the communities and neighborhoods where we live. We are in a time of so much hopelessness and despair, and by building solutions, we work to rebuild hope. And we also work to build credibility by showing that our movements have solutions for the struggles that we are facing right now and can lead us through the crises that we face. So just to give a little more detail on some of the initiatives that we work with, we provide training, funding, and support to folks who are building up farms, food production initiatives, folks who are building solar microgrids to create clean energy that's disaster resilient, folks building disaster resilient water purification systems, folks who are building mesh communications networks that can help keep communities connected and can be a way to send emergency calls for help if the cell towers go down, if the power grid goes down. Folks who are organizing guaranteed basic income programs for low-income families and doing it themselves in the absence of the government doing so. Folks who are working to build community-controlled affordable housing and more. We know that a lot of folks on this call might be involved in mutual aid, and we believe that we need to go beyond mutual aid to build up shared ownership of the systems that produce the things we need to survive. So the land we need to grow the food that we may need, water purification systems, renewable energy systems, ways to provide care for each other and for our neighbors. And we do this work really in 3 ways. We have a climate survival incubator. It's a year-long program that provides training and support to Generation Z, Black, Indigenous, and people of color leaders from 17 communities around the US. We also run a regenerative farm, retreat center, and movement building and training center outside Richmond, Virginia, called Dogbane Movement Hub. And we run that jointly with our partners at another organization. And we also share out what we've learned with thousands of people nationwide through public toolkits, workshops, and calls. And that's some of the tools that we'll be sending you home with tonight. And we've been doing this work with 68 organizations over the last couple of years and have trained almost 3,000 people. Most of us might know what it feels like when the future starts to feel smaller. And for a lot of us, we might have been feeling that way, especially the last year and a half. That the things we thought we could count on, a stable job or a safe place to live, start disappearing. And for young people, especially folks in their 20s and early 30s, that closing in feeling is constant. And I know I feel it myself as a 39-year-old living in Chicago. What we're trying to build is the ability to imagine a different future and the ability to begin working towards that here and now as a strategy to keeping people engaged in this challenging moment. In Richmond, Virginia, in 2025, we ran a incubator supporting 20 youth from 12 local organizations. And Richmond during that time was hit by a heavy snowstorm linked to climate change that left 250,000 people without drinkable water for a number of days. Trump took away $12 million that the city was planning to use to repair its water system. And in response, we brought together young leaders for a 3-day-long water survival training in April of that year. What we learned from that training was that we need space to grieve as we move into action together. The youth we brought together walked to a creek, listened, learned about the watershed system that they were part of, and shared their grief about being shut off from water, their grief about being disconnected from water and from the land. And from there, the group moved from grieving into rebuilding together, physically building a rainwater catchment system. And there's now plans in place to build a couple more like that at community organizations around Richmond, building a new sense of engagement and hope while also improving the community's physical resilience. And this is a picture here of our water survival guidebook that you can download at our website, theclimatemobilization.org. To share a little bit of a reflection from one of the youth we work with, they said, as an organizer, as a fighter, when I see a problem, I'm like, let's mobilize the people. Know what I mean? But there has to be a positive vision of what we can build and what we're actually creating. We need to go beyond the crisis to be providing solutions and providing a vision of how we get to this future, and also a vision of joy. So I'll leave you with this thought. The movements that thrive in the coming years will be those that can lead us through crises. And I invite you to be part of this work in your own community, to think about bringing it to your neighborhood organization, your PDA chapter, your place of worship, or your group of friends. You can download the free climate survival guidebook at bit.ly/survival guidebook 2026. And I'll get that link into the chat in a second. And I know we're going to have an interview and some Q&A. And for that, I'll turn it over to Maria Jahangiri, our co-leader, who's here on the line with us.
And before we jump in with Maria, Jeremy, this is obviously the billions of dollars that are wasted on nuclear weapons could jumpstart and elevate the work being done by this network. And if there's a way to link your two networks and the two issues, it's exponentially more powerful.
Yeah, on that money issue, there is a gentleman, he's the president of the board of Physicians for Social Responsibility, LA. And every year he runs the number on the previous year's tax spending on the nuclear weapons program. And this number is distinctly different from numbers folks might see from ICANN, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. The new number for 2025 tax season is the US government spending $263,000 a minute on its nuclear weapons program.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's up from 5 years ago. It was only $68,000 a minute.
And I'm sure, Rebecca, the money that Trump took out of your programs went to really important stuff at Mar-a-Lago, like, well, I won't tell you, but anyway, there you go.
We know they're defunding FEMA, right? They're defunding FEMA, and that's what they're doing with the money.
It's just, okay, so listen, the important thing is to link your networks and to expand the vision of your organizing to include both abolishing nuclear weapons and surviving on this planet, as you so beautifully put. Again, we have Dave Saltman in the wings to add the issue of media, but Maria, please, the stage is yours, and we have 51 people with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Let me just make sure my mic is on.
Yeah, you're good. We can hear you.
Speak up a little bit.
Yeah, I just made my mic a little louder. But it's good to meet you guys, and thanks for having us on this show. We're really excited to be here. I don't really have anything specifically prepared, but we're happy to take questions. I guess the main thing I'll say now on this topic, and I love that you were kind of pushing on what are those connections that can be made between the movement around nuclear and then the work that we're doing. And I think in general, something that really guides our work is at Climate Mobilization Project is we feel like our work building those local alternatives around survival and resilience, like Rebecca was sharing, they're really important to fuel the movements that are happening, that are fighting. So we see the building and the fighting as directly connected, and building those local infrastructure as key to building up leadership, kind of the next generation of leadership for the climate movement. That's going to go ahead and also tackle other critical issues of our time. So yeah, we're always excited to connect the threads, and that's a lot of what our work is focused on, educating people on why we need to build alternatives in order to fuel more stronger movements for our time.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you much. Myra Reason has a hand, and we'll proceed. Go ahead, Myra.
Oh, thanks so much. Maria and Rebecca, I have a question for you, and it's based on encountering so many young people who seem to have been convinced that nuclear power is necessary in order to combat our climate crisis. And I'm just wondering whether you have been a part of a movement, the Don't Nuke the Climate movement. There's there's a wonderful banner, and people all over the world have taken part in it. But it seems like the nuclear power industry has been exceptionally adept and successful in convincing younger people that we need nuclear power. And Maria, can you speak to that?
Actually, I have not heard of Don't Nuke the Climate. I would love to hear a little bit more to understand what work you're speaking about.
Do you see it on the screen right now? There's a website, don'tnuketheclimate.org, and at various climate rallies and marches, there have been contingents of people who carry a no, Don't Nuke the Climate flags. They're prevalent in Germany, but also in throughout island nations and other places. Indigenous people in various parts of the world have joined into that movement. So I'll try to get some more information about it. But you can see there is a website there called don'tnuketheclimate.org. So maybe I can get some more information to you.
And there's also, of course, the dimension with Jeremy's work of what nuclear war and also the construction of nuclear weapons do to the climate. Rebecca, you're shaking your head there. Yeah. Yeah,
the fact is that nuclear power isn't emissions free. It does it contributes to a lot of carbon in the climate. Because if you could take into consideration the enrichment of uranium and the mining of uranium, and then keeping the high-level nuclear waste from blowing up and cool, and then you have the fact that nuclear power actually is very thermally hot, and it contributes to global warming and takes out the middleman. Basically, nuclear power discharges lots of hot water, superheated water, into our oceans, rivers, and streams. It just emits a lot of heat and contributes to global warming
directly. Thank you, Maya. That's really important. Rebecca, did you want to say anything? And then Howie Hawkins has a hand.
I think that
you're muted. There you go.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, just that I think that we see that the climate movement in the last few years, last couple decades, has really relied on a lot of technical solutions. And yes, we do need some technical solutions around climate change, but many of them have ended up being false solutions. And I think in the spaces that we're in, a lot of young people actually are very conscious that nuclear energy is a false solution. That there's other false solutions as well that are being peddled by the fossil fuel industry. And so one resource I want to suggest you all check out is called Hoodwinked in the Hothouse. And that's a great resource to educate folks more about the problems with nuclear power and with some of the other industry-backed false solutions on climate change.
Thank you. Jeremy, did you want to throw in on this? I know you got to leave soon, and we'll go to Howie Hawkins. And then we're going to Dave Saltman and talk about the media.
Well, I just in the chat, because sort of nuclear spending came up again, I wanted to provide a link to the community cost calculator that Bob Dodge helps put together. So that's where the $263,000 a minute comes from. So if you wanted to figure out how much your community is spending on nuclear weapons, so that you can get a figure of how much money can be spent on other priorities that are far more meaningful than nuclear weapons, you can do that right here.
Okay, thank you for that. Howie Hawkins, did you want to jump in? Howie's the former presidential candidate from the Green Party.
And also a veteran of the Clamshell Alliance. And back then, we didn't have any problem connecting nuclear power and nuclear weapons. We talked about the fuel cycles being integrated, which the industry also always denies. But if you saw the news last week, the Trump administration wants to sell surplus plutonium to these upstart nuclear power companies to build new nuclear power plants and give them the fuel. I mean, one of the things that grew out of the Clamshell Alliance is we had all the guys fighting over tactics. So the women formed a caucus, and they had a conference called Women on, what was it called? Women on Life and Earth. Anyway, they had a conference, and out of that came the Women's Pentagon Action, which was significant in itself and became one of the main currents that led to the nuclear freeze movement, which was addressing the Euro missiles crisis, where the Soviets and the Americans were putting intermediate range nuclear missiles practically touching nose to nose. So there was no time if any of them got shot off. And just to wrap this up, there's a new book by Linda Pence Gunter, who's the partner of another old clamshell guy, Paul Gunter, called No to Nuclear. And it emphasizes it just came out from Pluto Press, the connection between nuclear weapons and nuclear power. So I urge people to read that book.
Well, great. And we've got emerging here of great movements. Jeremy Love, it's been great to have you. We know you got to go. And you're, of course, in New Hampshire, in the heart of Seabrook Clamshell Alliance country. Howie and I have revealed our great age. by I was arrested at Seabrook in 1989. So there you go.
No, it must have been 79. The first arrests were in 76.
Yeah, I know, but I was doing the media. I couldn't get arrested until 89. They put me off.
Oh, 89, really?
Yeah,
Well,
me and Paul Gunter got arrested together, by the way, at the same
I remember you taking pictures of my affinity group as we were about to be arrested in 1977.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I'm personal friends with Arnie Alpert, who I think that you both would know, and I was friends with Brenny Cushing, who passed away, who I bet you both know too.
Legends in their own time. 30 years from now, Rebecca and Maria and Jeremy, you'll be talking about how you're on this call and you plotted the merger of the 3, 4, 5 movements that we have represented here.
It's as long as AI doesn't take over.
No, we have to take over AI. That's the point.
It's true. We got an uphill battle. I got to take off, but I really just want to.
Great to have you, Jeremy. We'll have you back. Rebecca, Maria, thank you all so much. We're going to talk about the media now with one of the great gurus, our resident media mogul, Dave Saltman. Thank you, and we're going to continue this, obviously, for years to come. Well, at least until we win, which will be next week. And no doubt Trump took that money from your group and squandered it somewhere. So listen, we're gonna segue now. We got about 20 minutes till the top of the hour with David Saltman and Howie. Great to see you, man. Stay with us. I know you're a sports fan. Salty and I are both in the New York area where all hell is about to break loose at Madison Square Garden. I am really interested to see what happens. This is the first time, I believe, well, it's certainly the first time that Trump has showed up in an NBA final. I would suspect that maybe Obama came, but the Knicks are playing the Spurs tonight in Madison Square Garden, and Trump has decided to show up. The cheapest tickets are $6,000 or $7,000, but I would go if I could raise the money just to yell at Trump. And I'm sure many other people going to the game, have that same thing in mind. Salty, you worked in Manhattan, around the corner from the Garden, for CBS, among other things. And in the media now is a stellar interview with Scott Pelley, who you worked with personally. And, we're all trying to make sense of what's going to happen next with the media, because it sure ain't going to be CBS. So tell us what your impressions are of what Scott Pelley has had to say and what your plans are for saving the American information system, because God knows we need it.
Because it's all up to me, right?
Yes, it is, as a matter of
So
fact.
I first of all, I want to say what an outstanding display of talent and brilliance in this call. Wow, very impressive. And I got a special shout out to ALISON GREENE, who I got to say, you think like a producer. She says, let's get a film crew, knock on doors. Mr. ATM, you don't live here? Brilliant. Go for it. Michael
Well,
made a fortune.
David, I also think I got to interrupt. I also got to think. I think like a producer, except it's Mel Brooks from that movie, the producers. So you are a real producer, and you've had an incredible career. And we got to Steve Caruso. If you can find it, the link to the interview with Scott Pelley, that would be great. But David, go ahead and tell us what's the latest here.
Well, the interview was terrific. I don't know. I'm not looking at the whole panel here, but I hope everybody saw it, because I wouldn't want to waste your time and mine reviewing something you've already seen. But it was a beautiful, really well done interview. Scott was great. I got to say, he and I just crossed paths briefly at CBS. I was leaving about when he was coming in, but we both covered the first Gulf War together. He was in Baghdad. I was mostly in New York, keeping track of. Well, it's a long story, but and he was just starting out his career at CBS, he's been there now for 40 years. And he distinguished himself more than once. We just talked about this a little while ago, Harvey. Unknown to me, I was checking out his career. And in the year 2009 and 2010, Scott Pelley, leading a 60 Minutes crew, did two stories about the contamination of the rainforest in Ecuador by Texaco and Chevron, the stories that Steve Donziger was deeply involved in.
Right.
Pelley was ahead of us by 20 years on that stuff. And this is the mark of a real journalist. They go out where the story is happening. They don't wait for somebody to tell them about it and come to the studio. They go out and hunt it down and film it. And he did two of them. So hats off to him. And he's got a lot of credits in his, and he's a very unassuming guy. He's a member of the board of overseers of the International Rescue Committee. And he's a very kind of simple guy who was really dedicated to being a journalist, and who, I think the decisive sentence in this interview was, without journalism, no democracy. You've got to have a free press, and it's got to be a press that is independent of the government. This is crucial. And if you think about the history of democracy, it didn't really happen until, until there was something like a free press, at least developing. Benjamin Franklin, for example,
Right.
your namesake, one of the prime movers of,
Right.
the free press. So,
by the way, David, I'm going to bore you with some historical stuff. What you just said was said originally by Thomas Jefferson. And Jefferson basically said, if you have to choose between certain branches of government and the newspapers, take the newspapers.
I agree.
I will add, by the way, the Benjamin Franklin's illegitimate grandson was thrown in jail by John Adams for saying stuff about him that he didn't like, just like Donald Trump wants to throw all these guys in jail.
Well, I'll tell you what's really worried me today about Donald Trump, and this is a little, this is only because I spent so much time in the CBS building on West 57th Street that I still today, 20 years later, have nightmares about being locked in that building. Like Charlie Chaplin in Modern Times, I'm being ground up by those wheels in there. But listen to this. This is something really, nobody knows this. I'm sure that everybody on this call has driven, who's been to New York, which I assume is everybody. Otherwise, get with it, really. Has driven up the West Side Highway from West 57th, 56th Street is where it starts, up the West Side Highway to the George Washington Bridge. And if you, whether you realize it or not, that's exactly the location of the CBS Broadcast Center. It's at 57th and 11th Avenue, which is almost, and for all the years that I worked there, and I was there for 13 years total, it was a slum. In other words, there was that building. Across the street from that building was a building we called it the Fives, 555 West 57th. That's where the headquarters of 60 Minutes was. And the broadcast center was an entire square block. It's a massive building. I'm told that it's the largest building in New York without internal supports. It at first was a dairy building. And for a program that I did once some years ago for CBS, it was when I was working comedy there, I went down into this. It's got 3 subterranean levels. And usually nobody can go down there. And when you go down there, it used to be a dairy. There are still like horse flies from when it was a dairy. I'm not kidding. But on the very bottom floor, if you, I went all the way down to the bottom with a film crew, and I was stunned to see, guess what? A bright, perfectly functioning railroad. There's a train railroad that runs below the CBS building, and it goes out toward parallel to the West Side Highway, and goes up the Hudson River. And when you're on the road, you can't see this because the road is elevated, and there's a valley, which is where this railroad track is. And as you go a little further uptown, what you find is what we've learned to call Trump Village. Donald Trump owns all these buildings, every last one of them. And they're apartment buildings. They have a really good view of the river. And they're from like 58th Street up to, I don't know how far they go up. Okay. Anyway, the point is this. I went out there when I was doing this, filming this thing, and I said, what the hell is out here? And I went out there, and you know what was there? Was a massive tent city of homeless people. Hundreds and thousands, I'm going to say, of homeless people were living in this gully right on the border of Trump City, right next door to the CBS building, and right along this railroad track. And the railroad track, I discovered, belongs to the United States Army.
Well, so the point then is, what is Trump doing as Trump to CBS and the other media? And how do we counteract it?
It's real estate. He's going to take over that building and make it his barricade. This was my insane fantasy today, but it totally tracks with everything we know about the guy. Anyway, let's just put it this way. You heard it here first. If it
Well,
doesn't
the
happen,
Ellisons now own CBS. I assume they own the real estate, but they're also angling for CNN. What is the American people going to do to replace the loss of these information sources?
we're doomed.
We can't be doomed.
I was saying we were doomed back when they fired George Merlis as executive producer of the CBS Morning News with Bill Curtis and Diane Sawyer. It's just been a steady hammering, and this was really the destruction of one of the great institutions, maybe the greatest institution in the whole country. From my point of view, it certainly was.
60
Now,
million.
what's good is there's a lot of really good talent out on the street right now who are looking for work and who need to get mobilized by Alison Green and others to go film, to take pictures of these voters, non-existent voters, and to take that evidence to the state police headquarters and say, I want to report a robbery. And,
Right.
and this is how Mike Moore started. This is Roger and me. So it started exactly this way. So it's a total disaster. And everyone I've talked to, they're crying. They're crying.
Well, but we can't afford to cry for long. We do have an internet. We have, geniuses out there like Colbert and Kimmel and Desi Lydic and Rachel Maddow. So how do we fight back? How do we transcend the corporate takeover of the American media?
I'm saying we back up Alison Green and we listen. The one good thing that's happened in the media world in the last 20 years is the cost of cameras has gotten really, really low, and you can make a really great film with an iPhone. And great directors like Steven Soderbergh are making feature films with iPhones, editing and doing a whole thing on so getting the story is doable. Now, it's not so well organized as it was. CBS News was one of the points that Pelley made, which I really thought was good, and I've tried to express this before. A news organization is very much like a paramilitary operation. You've got to you've got to take over the territory. You've got to get the footage to the feed point. You've got to hit the satellite on time, or you don't have anything. If you don't make the deadline, you got nothing. Everybody's sitting down. When Dan Rather was doing the news, the CBS Evening News had to get on the air at 6:30 New York time, or you were done. There was no option.
But now, Dave, we have the ability. I mean, this show, what we've been doing for 6 years here, was inconceivable 20 years ago.
That's right.
If you're to discuss, then you could have people on a call, looking at each other, talking to each other, flashing each other notes, linking our websites. What the hell was a website?
Right.
20 years ago, it's science fiction.
That's right.
So now we have a whole new level of organizing and a whole new level of potential information gathering and distribution. And clearly we have to outflank these corporate fascists. How are we going to do it? It's all dependent on you to give us the answer. So let's hear it.
I'm having a hard time making this point. information gathering is not the same as news gathering. Information can be wrong. And the problem with somebody like, now let's take somebody who I really admire, John Oliver. He's a brilliant guy. He's really funny. And he's a very serious guy, as everybody can figure out. And he tries really hard to fill this role that you're suggesting, that he turn his program into a news gathering organization. The problem is, like, I didn't know about this Ecuador thing until I met Steve Donziger through you. Donziger was onto it in 2009 because because that's what journalists do. They go out and they look for the story. He had a local guy down there, maybe it was Donziger himself, who called him up and said, "Hey, you got to look at this," you know. And the point is,
Scott Pelley. Donziger gets in touch with Scott Pelley.
The point is that there are a lot of mistakes you can make and thinking you're providing information when you're really actually making the situation worse, or you're not contributing to the clarity of understanding that is really required in a democratic society. And I'm saying John Oliver because he did this, and I gotta say he bit off a huge thing. He wanted to do a story, and this is a legitimate story about the gist of the story was billionaires should pay their fair share of taxes. Okay, we can all agree with that concept, I think. The question is, how do you determine what's their fair share of taxes? And John Oliver was making the case that whatever the market value of the billionaire's stock was at a given moment, at the moment of tax time, April 15th, that's how much tax they should pay. Okay, whether or not the stock had been sold and the gain had been realized or not. Now, this is a bit of an esoteric story, and I covered economics for many years, so it was a story that I knew a lot about, and I had actually looked into it myself, wondering this same kind of thing. And in economics, this is called imputed income. This is not, from the tax point of view, earned income. It's imputed income. Okay, so now I don't want to get too much into the weeds of this, but this was the kind of mistake he was making without knowing it, because he had only been working on that story for that week, and I was doing that story for 20 years, you know, and there are a lot of complicated mistakes, especially when you're dealing with issues of war and peace and money and so on, that you can make and not be doing your audience any favors when you make them. So what he missed in this story was that if you're gonna tax somebody for their imputed income, then if at the same time they're fortunate taking a loss, in other words, the stock was under market, they should be getting a refund for that, by that logic. That wasn't part of the game. And the other thing that he missed was this. Everybody in this, and I bet it's everybody in this audience who owns a mutual fund, is paying imputed income tax. You're paying a tax whether or not you've cashed in your mutual fund or not. You're paying a tax as if you had. He missed all those elements. And
but nonetheless, we have Oliver, we have Jimmy Kimmel, we have Jimmy Fallon, we have Desi Lydek and all these other great news gatherers. Whether they're
news gatherers, they're comedians.
Well, but how do we combat the murder, which is what Scott Pelley called it, the murder of institutions like CBS and 60 Minutes, upon which the public has relied for information for so long?
I think we have to build new institutions.
Well, what are they? How do we do that?
Not substitute comedians for journalists. We need both. Let the comedians do the commentary, as they're brilliant at, and let the journalist, let Pelly do his job.
So how do we get around CBS? And millions of people watch CBS, but millions of people also now are tuning into podcasts and and Zoom calls like this. Steve Caruso, did you want to jump in here? And then Allison Green? We're going to go
Yeah.
till 4:20. We got 17 minutes.
Well, you could have 60 minutes with Harry Shearer. Do we have that in common, David? I
No.
mean, Harry covers
No,
it's the news. He gives you facts, but but it's satire, but it's stupid and it's idiotic and it's not funny, but it's funny, but it's, yeah, Lord. That's all. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, we tried with Harry Shearer, and Harry was great but he was only good at doing the voices and the comedy roles. When I was working in L.A. as news director of KMET, we had Harry and the Credibility Gap as commentators on the news, but they weren't the newscasters or the news writers. They were Harry Shearer played all the Disney characters. He played Mickey Mouse commenting on the death of Roy Disney. He played Goofy reading the readouts of the Disney company for the new regime minus Roy Disney. He was brilliant. He was hilariously funny, but he didn't pretend to be giving the story. I was playing the straight man. You need the straight man to make that work.
Well, but Harry Shearer has also been part of one of the most influential cultural icons of the era, which is The Simpsons.
Correct.
How do you replace the impact of The Simpsons?
Well, I'm saying don't take that away from him. Let Harry be Harry.
All right. So what we need is, Dave, we need you to do the CBS Evening News independent of the Ellisons on the internet.
Well,
that's what has to happen.
I'm probably too old now, but we need somebody. And I think Scott Pelley would be a good guy to do it.
Well, maybe he will. That's the point. How do we get these geniuses? Scott Pelley, God, that's Harry Shearer. He looks like the old man in the sea. So how do we get Scott Pelley, an independent vehicle, to do 60 Minutes and the CBS Evening News? We do have one situation. Dan Rather is still around. Both he and Scott Pelley are from Texas. Maybe Dan Rather should do a podcast every night on the internet.
Dan Rather's been doing a podcast every night on the internet for 25 years. Have you ever listened to it?
Never. But I did.
I rest my case. I rest my case.
Well, what he should do is he should go on Pornhub, and then everybody will see it. Allison Green, go ahead.
That was going to ruin his career immediately.
Well, we do have this situation. I hate to say this. Way more people watch Pornhub than the evening news. Now, maybe if we got Pornhub to start doing the news, then people would pay attention.
But wait a minute. Do you actually know the numbers on Pornhub? Seriously?
11 million.
9 million are watching the evening news. It's not that far apart.
No, it's not that. And also, I hate to bring it up. It was absurd, but you did have this situation in Canada on the CBC where people would come on and do the evening news and take their clothes off. Do you remember that? That did happen. I don't know if it still is, but who knows?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Allison Green, go ahead.
I think it sounds crazy, but we have to meet people where they are. And what you're talking about, I think those are the kind of creative ways. But I was going to say in one word, I know nothing about this world but gaming. They are on gaming. And so what you need is like almost commercials in their games that are actually force feeding them the news because they're not going to tune to it. So like I know that you said, David, like comedians are not news people, but you need to deliver things to the new ADHD world in a way that they will see it. So you get the journalists to go with the comedians, and maybe you are getting naked people who are actually putting the news in writing on their places. We need to get new venues.
Are there commercials in gaming? You have
I have
commercial?
no idea, but
Oh,
if
okay.
not, we should probably.
Sorry.
That's an interesting idea. Let's just think about that for a minute. Because I think journalists would be willing to go with comedians, but
Yeah.
not to be substituted for by
No,
comedians.
they should work together.
What you're not seeing about 60 Minutes is it's not Scott Pelley. 60 Minutes has a staff of I haven't looked lately, but 800 people, something like that, and at least 100 of them are producers. And they're it was always known, and CBS has always been known as a producer's shop. That's what I did when I was there for most of my career. And the producers are the ones that get the story. And Scott Pelley just comes in at the end and does the sit down or the interview. But the producer has reported that story, written the story, done all the everything to get that story. So you need that's why I say it's like the army. You know, you've got this pyramid shaped hierarchy, and you're only seeing the tip end of it. But in fact, it's the boots on the ground that are really getting the goods. But the idea of connecting it to gaming, that could work.
Yeah, and actually, you can do a game about the news, like maybe
you could bet
taking out Donald Trump in the
bet
ballroom.
what story is going to come up hottest of the day.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. That could
Well,
work.
we're definitely we're getting into
okay,
the
we're
nuts and
building a
bolts
game
here.
now.
This has to happen. I mean, we have obviously an era has ended here. We can
have
no
to-
longer count on the corporate-owned media to do anything sane and meaningful. So we have to figure out, what comes next. And it's Saltman, you have irreplaceable a legacy knowledge here that will have its impact.
If we're betting on the media, I can tell you what's going to replace it: the mafia.
Well, that's who's been in charge all along.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
It'll be the Corleone network. Mike Hersh, did you want to jump into this?
Money is the great equalizer in many ways, and once you made it about betting, which is something that everybody can understand, you don't really have to understand the news to be able to bet, but you do have to be able to evaluate, which is, as far as I'm concerned, as a news producer, that's good enough for me. If they evaluate, what else? I can't hope for more,
Unbelievable. It's really, this has to continue this discussion. We've got to break this path. If we have an internet that, and with Substack and Blue Sky and all these other tools out there, there's no excuse for not creating a reasonably reliable and important source of information. I mean, Ben Franklin would have gone to town on the internet. Mike Hersh, go ahead.
Yeah, Sonny, and I just want to shout out Allison. You're absolutely right. People love games, and it's one of the biggest industries in the country. It's one of the few things people pay attention to. And as a matter of fact, outrage over gaming helped fuel the rise of Trump. Steve Bannon helped weaponize a whole bunch of cranky, entitled white guys who resented women being involved in gaming. So I think that it makes sense for us to try to balance things out. But we had people running around playing Pokemon all over the place with their cameras, looking around different things. If we could figure out how to get people interested in reporting news the same way, going to where every politician is and shining a light on it. And, we do have a pretty democratic backbone in terms of YouTube. YouTube has got a lot of problems with it and demonetizing people and various other things. But I get a lot of my information from YouTube. There are a lot of podcasters and YouTubers who are bringing a fresh, no-nonsense approach. Some of them have comedy. Most of them have some element of comedy and entertainment, but they are not beholden to the old corporate bought out legacy media. And we're seeing right right now, a test where the old line media, like the New York Times and some others, are trying to torpedo Graham Plattner in Maine in the worst way. And it doesn't seem to be working because he's going over people's heads, going to podcasts, and people are saying, wake up, that they're taking him out for, like 1,000th of what Trump did. And these people kiss Trump's butt all day long. So people are seeing through the sold out, bought up corporate media that is, feeding the billionaires, owned and operated by the billionaires, and screwing us over. And we are looking at a new era. And
Well,
Salty, thank you so much for informing us about where we've
Right.
been. Because if we don't know where we've been, how do we know where we're going?
Well, here's the question then. How do you unite these four powerful media forces? The news, porn, comedy, and gaming. How do we put those four together and build a national audience that will sustain our democracy?
Well, the next person who figures that out is going to be the next billionaire, and then we might have to worry about them buying things up. But
Well, what do you think,
we're onto
Salty?
something.
Well,
We're onto something.
Harvey, I would, I don't think you're going to like this answer, but may I refer you back to your experience with Pacifica?
Okay. Well,
No, that is a live, it's moribund, 1.5 feet in the grave. I agree with that. But
their Pacifica is trying to pull itself up, Dave. And
exactly, that's what I'm saying. And when I was 20 years old, I had the incredible privilege of meeting.
There are two ways you can post a new message in your project.
I've already forgotten his name.
First,
the famous philosopher who said, "Hell is other people."
Oh, that's Sartre.
Jean-Paul Sartre, yeah, Jean-Paul Sartre. When I was covering the Bertrand Russell War Crimes Tribunal,
he was not exactly a really social guy.
No, he was not, but he was amusing, and I'm just saying that's the problem we face. That's the problem you face with Pacifica. It's the problem you face with any large organization or even small organization.
Well, but we have this army of people out there on Substack doing podcasts. I mean, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
The question is, what kind of force does it exert? And was the day of the legacy media over anyway? And what's going to we need as progressives and environmentalists and solar advocates, we need to find a new vehicle for informing and persuading people. And it ain't going to be CBS.
Well, I'm not sure, the fact that the CBS Evening News, for all of its faults, is still getting a viewership of or maybe I'm not, I think I mean 60 Minutes is getting a viewership of 9 million people. That ain't chicken feed.
No, I know, but it's going to go away. It won't have the credibility. I mean, what do you think the viewership of 60 Minutes will be in a year?
0. Or close to it. No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not dead. It's not, the audience is still going to want it. It's just not going to be available. So somebody else can do it.
I suggested that we change the name of this Zoom call to 120 minutes.
But we can't deliver the
listen, we've had Steve Donziger, we've had you, we've had lots of great people.
It's one thing to have Steve Donziger and another thing for you to be in Ecuador on location and pick up the goo in your hands. That's getting the news. Mm-hmm. Having Steve Donziger in the studio is letting the news come to you. And you didn't have, if you're going to bring Steve Donziger in, then according to 60 Minutes logic anyway, you also have to bring in that crazy judge who disbarred him.
You're right. And not to mention Elon Musk and all these hideous satanic evildoers out there.
I know.
And I want to get, and next we'll have to have Steve Donziger. But listen, we are not Steve Donziger, Steve Bannon. I want to have Steve Bannon on here. Listen, everybody, this is phenomenal. We still got 40 people, but we got to go. It's 4:20, time to toke up. Salty, you and I, meet me down at Madison Square Garden. We'll go watch the game with Trump. All right, everybody. This has been fantastic.
Train.
Thank you, Mike Hersh, for persevering. It worked out great with your friend there. It was really good. Everybody was great tonight. Steve Bannon, thank you. MYLA RESON. Howie, so glad you came on. Alison Green. We will be back next week with Greg Palast for sure. And we're going to continue hammering away on protecting this election and on rebirthing the media. I think that Dave Solomon, you need to be the next Paley in terms of Paley and Pelly. That'll be a great combination. All right, everybody. No nukes. See you in Solartopia. And come back next week, everybody. We'll see you then. Take care. Adios.